Welcome to the Women Matter podcast with your host, Marline Duroseau. Join us as we delve into all things women, from the complexities of fertility to empowering discussions on femininity and confidence. Our segments shine a light on the journey of family building, offering awareness and support to those navigating this path. We're here to tackle impactful topics crucial to women's lives, empowering you to be unapologetically yourself while embracing your femininity. Tune in for insightful conversations and inspiration to live boldly in every aspect of your life. Because here on the Women Matter podcast, every woman's story matters. Hi, welcome back to the Women Matter podcast. I am your host, Marline Duroseau. I'm so excited to be with you today to share the content on this latest episode. This episode is going to be about living with no regrets. Ouch, that's a little tough one, right? Because oftentimes in life, we navigate this world without a manual or necessarily a, standard operating procedure on what to do, how to decide, what type of decisions to make. Sometimes we don't have that crystal ball that's going to give us all of the answers that we need. So oftentimes that means you'll make decisions in life and you just really kind of sort of don't know what those decisions will result in. Obviously, if we make a decision, we do so with the intent of it being a good one, and that we'll be able to then, push forward and learn, and the outcome will be great. But so many times in life, that is not often the case. So today, again, we're going to be talking about how to live with no regrets, and let's just jump right into it. Oftentimes, whenever you think about living with no regrets, it involves making decisions from a place of being very intentional and incorporating a mindset that involves, growth, resiliency, acceptance, and being able to make things better, right? You have to have that mindset of being able to learn and grow and, being intentional in what you decide to do in order to cultivate your learning and your growth in this world. So talking about living with no regrets, I want to talk about a little bit of stuff today that will help us to have some tips on that you can incorporate on how to live without regrets. Now, before I kind of jump into that, I want to talk a little bit about my experience in life and why I've always, and I mentioned it in a previous video, that I tried to always live my life without having regrets. And this has been something that I've done ever since I was a little girl. I don't know why. I don't know if it's just that one of those inherent things that I was born with, but I always try to do my best to do as much research as I can, ask questions, talk to people, whatever I had to do to try to make sure that I had everything I need when it was time to make a decision, because I know in life, you can't repeat yesterday. You can't go backwards. So in doing that, I always felt, why not do the best I can in terms of, finding out everything possible before I made a decision so that I didn't have to live in a world of regret. And I know myself, I know that I would ponder and beat myself up if I made a mistake or made a decision that I regretted. And it's hard because I don't want to do that, because although I know I would do that to myself and ponder on it and dwell on it, that would make me feel even worse, because on top of that, I can't go back and change it. I can't redo. So the only thing that I use my experiences in life for is a way to learn how to move forward and learn what to do or not to do in a future or similar situation. So, I've always incorporated that, and as a young lady now, I think I can proudly say that I don't really have any regrets in life. One of the things that I feel that if I could go backwards, and I've always said this, and it's the one thing, and it's not that I regret it, if I were able to do things again, I probably more than likely would not have moved out when I was 18. So I feel that although everything ended up working out for my parents, they got their mortgage paid off, they're doing well, no problem. I always said if I could do it again, I would have stayed home a little longer. And I actually talked to my mom about this and expressed it to her. And she said, Marlene, absolutely not. Okay, do not say that. You're fine. Nothing would have changed. You went above and beyond to help your father and I, even when you had already started your own life and had your own financial responsibilities, to take care of. And you were always here for your father and I. So if you're thinking that because you feel that maybe we feel a certain way or whatever, absolutely not. Obviously, as our little girl, we would have wanted you with us, longer, but don't look at it from an aspect of being able to have helped out even more financially or being there because you did everything that you can. You didn't even live here and you were helping us, and we had some of other people here with us too. So don't feel like that. And that helps me feel better about everything. And like I said, it's not that I regret it. It's, they ask you if you could go back in life and do something over, what would it be? Right now, that's the one thing, as much as my life has kind of been up and down and I've experienced a lot of, tumultuous things, the one thing that I know that I would have wanted to do is stay home a little longer, mainly for the sake of my parents. So with that, I always try to make decisions that, are forward thinking. So if I make a decision today, I try to say, okay, how will this decision affect the future? Or not that I can see the future, but I'm just trying to look at everything from the different perspectives. And that's why it's like sometimes I overthink and dwell too much. And sometimes it's hard for me to make a decision because I don't only think about 1 + 1 is 2. It's like, okay, well, if I do 1 + 1 and I get 2, what about if I did 0.5 plus 0.5? Well, that's wrong. From the accountant that can't add. Okay, if I did 0.5 plus 1.5, how would that, decision, yes, I still get 2, but how would that work out? Or, if I did 4 minus 2 to get the 2, how would that work out? So a lot of times I'm working on it. Remember, I'm a work in progress. I'm learning to not dwell too much as it relates to making decisions because sometimes I get stuck and can't decide anything because I'm overthinking everything. But I'm explaining that to explain that's the essence of how I am and try to make decisions because I know I can't go back and change anything, right? So I try to do the best that I can with the information that I have and acquire more information, talk to people, garner, the knowledge that I need in terms of being able to make a well-informed decision going forward because I have to have no regrets because I can't go back, right? And oftentimes it's easy in life to say, well, I regret it now, but that's because it didn't really work out the way that you planned or the way that you wanted. And what I've also learned as I also grew in my faith and grew as a woman, grew in my self-awareness, is sometimes things don't work out exactly how you planned, not from anything you did or didn't do. Sometimes things don't work out because other people are involved. And when other people are involved, you can't control what they do, what they think. You can't control, their actions. The only person that you have autonomy and control over is yourself. So I've been learning to give myself grace as I grew and as I got older, give myself grace knowing, I can't beat myself up too much on this outcome because when it came to me, I personally did everything I physically could have to get X. Outside of that, it's no longer in my purview, right? It's out of my hands. I can't do anything else because now the rest of it or some kind of, input or something that would affect it is now reliant or coming from someone else. And I can't tell other people or make other people do anything, right? So that's also something that I've learned to try to make sure that I tell myself, and I also tell other people, if they come to me with the quest of wanting help to make a decision, I kind of always go, over that as well, that we can decide and do what we feel is best. But ultimately, if other people are involved, sometimes it may impact the decision. Now, is it fair? Does it always happen? No, but life isn't fair. And we don't have a crystal ball to know a lot of the times what the heck is going to happen, after the fact. So I want to preface this by saying that. So I have my notes here, but I just want to go over a few tips, and then I'll input my personal experience, should it be relevant, in each of the tips, either on how I was able to do it or how I use that particular tip now or have used it in the past, some kind of, attribution to trying to live my life with no regrets. So one of the first things, first tips to living your life with no regrets is to identify your values. You have to identify what is most important to you, and you make decisions based on those core values to ensure that you're living authentically. Okay. So again, it's identifying what's important to you so that you can make decisions based on values that ensure that you're living authentically, right? So authentically to me is to live with no regrets. So I try to, and that's a value that I want to instill so that I don't run myself ragged or disturb my peace. So because I know it's important to me to not live with regrets, that's one of my life values. I try to make decisions that are contingent upon me knowing that whatever happens, like, I've done my best and I did everything. So you have to be very, very intentional in your decisions and knowing, okay, should outcome A happen, I'm okay with this outcome, or should outcome B happen, this is how I'll pivot, or should outcome C happen, at least it's true to who I am and what my core values are. So you try to make decisions based on what you know is right. So for instance, in this case, let's use core values as a person who maybe, doesn't believe in, smoking, right? Because smoking is bad for your lungs, and you don't want to be the person that happened to get the risk of having lung cancer because even from secondhand smoke. So to even help prevent that, not only are you not going to smoke, you make a decision not to smoke, you also make a decision to not be around people who smoke. So if you're making that decision, being mindful of it and being present and knowing that this is what you don't want to happen. And let's say, God forbid, something did happen because you were I don't smoke, so no, I'll be good. Oh yeah, great. Oh, yep, nope. So I'm okay. I can be around the smokers because I'll be fine because I deliberately made a decision not to smoke, so I'm not going to get lung cancer, right? I know this is probably a bad example, but I'm just thinking off the top of my head. But in doing so, that may not prevent you made this decision, right? But it may not, spare you or prevent you from being exposed to lung cancer because yes, you've made a decision to not put that into your body. However, you're hanging around people that, smoke, right? So if it's an abundant amount of secondhand smoke, it's almost as though you're doing the smoking too. Now, I say that to say someone who's young and doesn't know that, they don't know any better. So they thought they were doing the right thing by not putting a cigarette to their mouth. But when you learn, when you're open to learning and you're open to reading and finding out more information about how people live, you'll start to hear more information about people who are indeed getting lung cancer from secondhand smoke. So that'll help inform your decision to, okay, not only am I not going to smoke, I'm also not going to be around people or try to minimize the people that I'm around to smoke, because that is an important value to you of protecting your body and making sure you live as healthy as possible, right? Okay. So one of the other next steps is to set goals and take action. In order for you to live with no regret, you set goals and take action. You clearly define your short-term and long-term goals and take actionable steps towards achieving them, even if they seem small. Now, this one is a big one, right? So, it's important to set goals because set goals and take steps towards trying to achieve them. Because at that point, like I was explaining prior, you've done everything you can, knowing that you are able to get this particular result, right? So for instance, if one of your goals is to, graduate high school. So you want to graduate high school, so you're going to set goals. In order for me to graduate high school, I have to get through 9th grade, 10th grade, 11th grade, and 12th grade, right? So yes, that's a huge goal that you've set, but you want to live a life that you don't regret not having had or earned a high school diploma. So in order to do that, it's not enough to just say it. And for a fact, if you're going to regret not having earned a high school diploma, one way to prevent that, or to know that you won't have that regret, is to take steps and set goals and take action on working towards getting that high school diploma. Because at that point, you know you've done everything you can, right? That's in your power to help prevent you not getting it. That way, even if, you've come up to obstacles along the way, to try to figure out another way, because, hey, maybe you run into a roadblock. And a lot of us, I mean, we're human. You run into a roadblock and you're saying, well, maybe that's my sign that I need to not pursue this, or maybe that's my sign that I need to stop. But no, because in the back of your brain that you would live with regret because you don't have the high school diploma, you don't use that obstacle as a way or a sign to just stop. So you put the goal in, and that goal is to graduate high school, and you start taking actionable steps, even if they're small actionable steps. And that example, for instance, would be go to school every day, right? Showing up is half the battle. So you show up and you go to school every day, and you reward yourself for doing so. You show up to school every day, you do your best, you went from 9th grade, 10th grade, 11th grade, 12th, and boom, now you're done. So I know that's like a simplistic example, but that's just an example of how you, in order to not regret X, that you need to put these goals in mind, and take these steps towards accomplishing that goal, so that indeed you don't regret X over here. Okay, so that's the second step, setting goals and taking action. Now, the next step is, in terms of trying to live your life without regret, is to embrace change and uncertainty. That's a big one. Embracing change and uncertainty. You have to accept that change and uncertainty are parts of life. You have to be adaptable and open to new experiences that can lead to personal growth. Okay. So that one is really, really big because, although you may make plans, and that's what I was saying about the second step with the high school, you may make plans, but there's some uncertainty there. Maybe during that high school plan, they changed the senior test to a different test, and you had no idea, how you're supposed to study for it, or they sprung it on us last minute. So that's an uncertainty that you just don't know how to deal with. But again, you don't use that as a way to say, okay, maybe this isn't for me and I'm going to stop. No, you have to be open to knowing, hey, although this is my plan, we might have some obstacles that get in the way, or we might have to have detours that we need to take, but I have to be open to that and be willing to ride that wave or pivot and change so that I can make sure I ultimately get to the goal. Because oftentimes we live in regret because in our brain, we have a one-track mind. This is the end goal. This is the result. And if it doesn't work out that way, then it wasn't meant to be and we're done. And then you're living with this regret because you didn't see this new path all the way through. So that's the third one, embracing change and uncertainty. Next, you want to practice self-reflection. So you regularly want to reflect on your experiences and your decisions, and you learn from both successes and mistakes and use those lessons to guide future choices. Now, this one is really important, and that's one thing I also mentioned in another video. Yes, you don't have a crystal ball to know specifically what's going to happen. You just do the best with what you have. You acquire and attain new information so that it can help cultivate the decision that you want to make. However, let's say things don't work out the way you plan, even though you've done all this research, you've put in the hard work, you've done everything. It's not, it's not the end of the world, right? So maybe in that same high school situation where you went to school every day, you went from 9, 10, 11, 12, but then because in that 12th grade, they changed the requirement to graduate and, something happened and you weren't able to graduate at that point, right? It's not necessarily over. You use that as an example to reflect so that you can go back and say, okay, what can I do now, to change or make it better? So keeping in line with educating yourself, you reflect and you're like, okay, maybe it's because I didn't study enough for this particular test. I didn't take the time to find out, what the impact of the test was. I thought because I had everything else, that was it. So that's a lesson. You're reflecting back to say, oh no, once they institute something, anytime going forward, if I find out that the requirement for the driver's license test or, whatever it is, once I find out that the requirement has changed, I want to go in there and familiarize myself with it and reflect on it to say, okay, now that I know this, I need to take a different path and need to do it differently, because that way that opens your horizon to knowing how you can do and approach things better. And it's a lesson for moving forward, because now the good thing about not having, graduated in the 12th grade with everybody else, there's still the option for the GED. So if not having that regret of not having finished high school is still, significant for you and relevant, you're like, okay, I'm going to pivot. My next option is to get the GED, but because I didn't take this other test seriously, I need to make sure that going forward, that's that lesson I learned, right? And that not accomplishing it in 12th grade, I know my lesson now is to take it seriously and approach it differently, so that now my next option, thank goodness I have it, which is the GED, I'm not going to have the same result. You used that life experience and the things that, are deemed mistakes or things that you can't go back and change. You use those as ways and manners to move forward, learn from them so that you can succeed, going forward. So definitely practice self-reflection. The next thing is to prioritize relationships. And in that, you're investing time and effort in nurturing meaningful relationships with family, loved ones, friends, and strong connections can provide support and enrich your life. Now, prioritize relationships. Now, prioritizing relationships can look many different ways, right? So, I've often heard people say, well, I don't really need anybody, and, I can do it myself, or if they're not my friend, well, forget it, X, Y, Z, A, B, C. And guess what? That's fine. You do have some people who are okay with not necessarily having to engage with people all the time, meaning some people don't care to necessarily be with their friends all the time. Some people don't, it's not important to them to always be with their siblings or, cousins or friends or whoever. But I have to tell you that it's important, if you know that one of your values, it goes back to number one, understanding your core values. If you know that one of your values in life or something that's really important to you involves having a good relationship with people you care about or love, and it could be whoever, regardless of the nature of the relationship, then at that point you do your best to cultivate and enrich that relationship, so that, God forbid, hopefully something doesn't happen, but in life we all have our day. If and when someone passes away, you don't live with regret because you never, maybe you had a disagreement and you just never spoke to the person anymore. It wasn't important to you to try and work it out. And you may have had all good reason for it, right? Maybe it was the other person that hurt you or offended you, and they didn't take the step to try to make up with you. So in your brain, and maybe in a court of law or in a court of public opinion, you were right or justified in not being the one to pursue the relationship. And that's fine. But if you're a person that it's going to bother you or negatively impact you or emotionally take a toll on you, if something were to happen to that person and you have these unresolved issues, then you at that point, because it's for you, it's not for them, you at that point, in order to live with yourself, have to then take that decision to cultivate, making up. And it doesn't mean just because you make up that the relationship goes back to exactly how it was. Because sometimes I've learned as I got older too, sometimes forgiveness is for you and not the other person. So that way your heart is clear, your peace is not disturbed, you're protected in your peace. And if something were to happen, you've made up and you won't have that regret. And regret doesn't always mean it's because it's your fault or you did something. You just regret the nature of the relationship, right? And knowing that maybe if you tried or maybe if you took the first step. So if you know that that's important to you, then that's a relationship where you would go in and prioritize. And it could mean that we just forgive each other and we never speak again. That's fine too, but at least it's not on you. But now if you're not going to regret that this person did you wrong, you were justified, court of public opinion agrees, and then they pass away and you're good, okay. So then you'll put the time and effort into another relationship that you want to cultivate that you wouldn't want that to happen with. So the relationship part is very, very happy. The relationship part is very, very important because it's all up to you, and it's part of also protecting your peace, making sure that the people that you love and care about, you're able to have that great relationship with and prioritize it so that you don't have to live in regret should something happen. And it doesn't have to always be morbid in terms of passing away, but different things happen in people's lives. You may move away and don't see each other all the time, but if that relationship is important to you, then you figure out a way to have that communication schedule open. When are you guys going to come visit each other? How often are you going to, communicate, talk on the phone, text, that type of thing. So that's one of the things on living without regret, is to help prioritize the relationships that are important to you. Okay. The other next thing is to stay present. You focus on the present moment rather than dwelling on the past or worrying about the future. And sometimes you can do that with staying grounded and with mindfulness, because remember, like I always explain, you can't go backwards. And that's one of the things that if you start dwelling on the past, you're only hurting yourself. You can't go back and change anything. So be mindful and present, in and intentional in the decisions that you do make, and in the space that you're living in, and in the world that you're living in, how you're living today, right now, so that okay, I'm doing everything that I can mindfully. You're self-aware. You've taken accountability for whatever you have going on in your life, so that once tomorrow happens, you're not looking back on yesterday wondering what if, or man, woman, I should have, I could have, right? Because that doesn't help you nor anybody. The next thing in terms of not living with no regret is to take risks. So part of my Women Matter motto is to be motivated, to be courageous, and to be dynamic. And the risk in this particular step comes into account with the C in my motto, which is to be courageous, right? Courageous, you have to be courageous because fear exists, right? Fear is something that exists. We can't get away from it. What you do with the fear is is what's important. What do you do next, right? And in order to get over that fear and be courageous, you just look fear in the eyes and you do it anyway. Whatever it is that you're afraid of, you look at it, acknowledge it. Okay, I'm going to do it anyway, because what's going to happen is, if you don't try, you'll never know. And if you know that you're the type of person that's going to dwell and reflect and feel bad and regret because you never tried, then you have to take the risk and do it. And you may not get the answer that you need, but it's one of those things where from that experience, you'll know how to move forward, right? Because you would have learned something from that lesson or that experience or that mistake or whatever it was that you did. But without doing it, or absent of doing it, you'll never know. And then it'll just keep eating up at you if you're that person that it matters to you that you didn't do or try what it is that you were looking into. So it's really, really important to take risks. Don't be afraid to take calculated risks, right? Stepping out of your comfort zone can lead to valuable experiences and opportunities. So in my particular example that I want to share as it relates to taking risks, for me, having to deal with infertility is something that I never thought that I would experience, just because, I didn't know of anyone ahead of me in my family or before me that dealt with it. I didn't know what the outcome would be. I was very, very afraid. I didn't know if I would ever be a mother that carried and had her own children. So it was really scary. But I know that if options, once in doing my research, I knew that different options were available. So knowing that these options were available, and I know that if I didn't at least try, that I would regret it for the rest of my life. So I think it was important for me to at least try to see what would happen, and if I could find success that way based on all of the education and the research that I did, and the medical professionals and other people that were out there, versus not trying at all, not doing anything, and just sitting here waiting, hoping, and praying, figuring it out. And even from the prayer aspect, it's really big in Christianity that prayer without works, or faith without works, is dead. So you can have the faith, but you have to put in the work. You can, believe that you're going to accomplish something, but what have you done? Where is your tangibility towards it, to touch it, fix it, make it, do it, help somebody help you. So that's why it's very, very important. And I'm happy I did take that risk to go and try the different fertility treatments. And although, it took 15 years for my husband and I's infertility journey to be over, I don't regret it. And I've had some very, very tough experiences in my fertility, including, the loss of our daughter. But that's one thing that I don't regret. Would I have wanted her here with me now? Absolutely, yes. But I know I would feel even worse if I never tried, right? So taking risks, stepping outside of your comfort zone, and doing research, because sometimes stepping outside of your comfort zone doesn't mean going to do things that are illegal, or things that really go against, you know, the essence of who you are or what you believe and things of that nature. But definitely doing your research, talking to the right people, cultivating a community to help you as it relates to taking those risks. Okay. The next thing on the list here for living with no regret is to practice gratitude. Definitely practice gratitude, whether it's good or bad, it's great. You have to appreciate and acknowledge the positive aspects of your life. Sometimes we don't think that we deserve happiness. Sometimes we don't think that we should be happy about one thing because we don't have something else that we're waiting for. And I mean, those feelings of gratitude can go all over because sometimes other things in your life aren't going right. So you're like, why should I be grateful for this? And on the contrary, it's the opposite. Because other things aren't going right, but you have this 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever amount of things that are going right, that's where your gratitude comes in. Because the way I always looked at it as is, you know, my career was popping. Popping means it was on fire, right? I was doing what I needed to do and moving up the ladder when it came to my career. My education was popping. You know, I was learning as much as I needed to learn. I went from my high school to bachelor's to master's to certified, you know, licensed professional, right, in the accounting field, and you know everything was going right. So instead of using that to say, oh man, you know, I'm not grateful and I'm not going to enjoy those aspects of my life because I'm waiting on this fertility thing to happen, you know, based on my values as a Christian, you know, you have to be grateful because this is a wonderful thing and wonderful things that are happening outside of me waiting for this thing that I don't have. And let's say I didn't have, you know, I don't have the fertility issues resolved yet, but then I didn't have a job to help pay for it. I didn't have a husband to go to the appointments with me. I didn't have a house to live in. So you see how just because you don't have one thing, but you have other things, you could have just as easily not have those things either. So it's really important to show gratitude as it relates to where you are and use it as, you know, a way to propel your motivation to keep going on what it is that you're trying to accomplish. Okay. The next thing is forgive yourself and forgive others. It goes back to cultivating that relationship I was telling you about. Holding on to grudges or self-blame can lead to regret. So you practice forgiveness and then you're releasing negative emotions and moving forward. Okay. Easier said than done. I had to learn when I was growing up. People are like, oh, you know, forgiveness is for you and not the other person. Oh, no, honey, you couldn't tell me that because I didn't believe that. I'm like, oh, no, I'm not forgiving them. They need to come to me. They did. As I got older, because the more, you know, as long as you're alive and you're breathing, you have the opportunity to learn and grow and pivot. So I changed my mindset and I finally understood because mentally I had to take away all the blockage and accept a manner of accepting the information because I was hearing the words forgiveness is for you and not the other person, but I wasn't comprehending that. So once I learned and understood what that meant, I said, I got it. Okay, so that's all I'm going to say about that. Forgiveness is for you, not the other person. You choose how you want to move forward with that. Living authentically, again, being true to yourself and making choices that align with your genuine desires and beliefs and just showing up as yourself. You know, that's the D in my MCD motto, be dynamic, right? That you're being, you know, authentic. We're all dynamic creatures. You know, you don't want to show up as, you know, a person that's, you know, loud when authentically you're more reserved. You don't want to show up reserved and authentically you're more, you know, life of the party. So it's okay to be yourself. Obviously, in different settings, we have to conduct ourselves in a certain manner. That's okay. That's not what I'm talking about. Just the essence of who you are. You want to live an authentic life so that you don't say, man, I went all these years just being quiet and holding it in and not being myself. And then all along, look how much time has passed and no one really got to really know the real me. And you don't want to live with that. So definitely live authentically. Next is you want to seek balance. You strive for a balanced life that includes work, hobbies, relaxation, and time with loved ones. Balance can help prevent burnout and promote overall well-being. Yes, I talked about this in the other video that I made about burnout. You have to be able to find that balance because you don't want to regret being a working mom. You don't want to regret being a corporate executive. You don't want to regret your 6-figure salary. You don't want to regret, you know, your ability to take vacations. You don't want to regret, you know, you don't want to regret not being a stay-at-home mom or like the stay-at-home moms. You want to be able to seek balance because even as a stay-at-home mom, you want to be able to factor in time for yourself. maybe start a side business if that's what you want to do. You don't want to regret that because you're feeling like, there's no balance and you're only that one aspect of yourself. Absolutely not. Whether you're a stay-at-home mom, whether you're a working mom, you try to figure out a way to incorporate balance so that you don't regret what it is that in essence is making up your lifestyle, right? Because outside of changing who you are or what you do every day or how you show up in life, outside of just changing that, and not all of us have the ability to just stop one way of living and go to the next from one day to the next. You want to be able to figure out a way to incorporate and strive for that balance so that you're able to find happiness in whatever segment that you're in. So yes, I enjoy being a stay-at-home mom, but you know what? On Friday nights, I'm with my girlfriends, I'm with the other stay-at-home moms, we're having some wine. Like that's what I look forward to. That's good. So you don't feel like because you're not making time to go out with your girlfriends or because you're not making time to get that, hair washed and shampooed, then you regret being a stay-at-home mom, or because I'm working all the time and I don't make time to take that PTO day so that I can go spend it with my husband, or take that half a day to go spend the rest of a dismissal, right? Have my kids dismissed from school so we can go hang out at the park as a family. You want to be able to find that balance so that you don't regret what it is that, one, you might love it, but grow to regret it because you're not incorporating balance in your life. Okay, so seek balance. That's very, very important. Okay. Next, another way to tips for living with no regret is to help others. Engaging in acts of kindness and helping others can prove a sense of purpose and fulfillment. Giving back is my nature. Everything I have is for people. It's to the detriment of myself. So that's something else that I'm working on. For me, I have to admit that I have that as my own downfall. But if I have something and I know someone needs it, depending on what it is, or, I'm just generally speaking, if there's a way that I can help, whether it's with my knowledge or whether it's with my time, whether it's with a skill that I have, then that's what I'm going to do to try to help, because I know I would regret not being able to help someone when I knew I had the capacity to, because helping people and living a genuine, fulfilling life is important to me, is one of my core values. I know I would regret if I knowingly watched someone struggle and was able to help them in somehow, some way, and didn't, right? So find where that works for you. And helping doesn't always mean, helping can look like anyway. Helping can mean you're praying for someone, you're sending them positive vibes. If you know they're struggling with something, you go over there and sit. Maybe they have an issue, or like a lot of times our postpartum moms, you're helping is, you can't watch the baby, you're working, right? You can't just go and breastfeed for them or whatever that is. But in that case, you can bring dinner that day when you get off of work, stop by your friend's house. Oh, here's dinner for you. And even if she doesn't eat it that day, it's in the fridge, she'll eat it tomorrow. That's you helping, right? So helping can look and be so many different ways, whatever is within your capacity and your ability to give back and help genuinely and authentically without depleting yourself. Then yes, if you know you're gonna be a person to regret not being able to help or look out for someone, definitely do what you can when you can with what you have. Okay. And finally, to be able to live with no regrets is about continued learning and growing. You're embracing lifelong learning and personal development and seeking new knowledge and skills to continually evolve. This goes back to a couple of the examples that I gave, where you think you did all the research, you did everything and asked all the questions, talked to all the experts, you thought you had it down pat, and it still didn't work out, or the outcome wasn't what you anticipated or planned for. But your ability to continue to learn and evolve and grow is what will help facilitate the next time a situation like that or similar, or it's for someone else comes up, you're able to use that and help yourself get better and learn more to help yourself and maybe someone else, right? So it's very, very important. I'm an avid learner. I love to read. I love to find out. I love to research. I like to know why things happen. It's like not just knowing, and this is weird, right? But bear with me. I had a fear of flying. I'm getting significantly better, but I feel like what has been helping me get over my fear, each day it gets a little better. Each time I travel, it's better, is because I've been taking the time to do research on, you know what? I'm afraid of flying, but why? Let's go and dig into this. How do planes fly? What makes them fly? What keeps them? First of all, how do they get up there, right? And what keeps them up there? And what happens when it's time for them to land? So it's like I had to go in and really do my research, and in doing my research and learning, it's helping me know that, okay, it's safe. Sometimes you can't control what's going to happen because sometimes there's mechanical issues, different things like that. But knowing and learning how and the essence and everything involved in getting a plane in the air and getting it to land safely, I said, oh, okay. So that helped me feel a little better. What's turbulence? What causes turbulence? What are the effects of turbulence? What can turbulence do to you? Right? So once I kind of learned and did that, every time I get on the plane, it's like I know, okay, so now this is happening based on my research. This is what's happening now. Okay, this is what's happening now. Okay, so it makes me feel a little better, right? So continuing to learn and grow and just embracing, learning and personal development, self-development is really, really important to help you not have any regrets in your life. So by incorporating these into your life, you can work more towards living intentionally and living in a manner that is conducive to you being happy, you being able to, mitigate any future regrets. So just to kind of go over the different steps as we continue, the first thing again is to identify what your values are. The next tip is to set goals and take actions. Next one, embrace change and uncertainty. Practice self-reflection is the next one. Then you have prioritizing relationships, staying present, right? Then you take risks, don't be afraid to take those calculated risks. Practice gratitude, forgive yourself and others, live authentically, show up true to yourself, be yourself. So you don't want to regret that. Seek balance, help others, and continue learning and growing. So thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of the Women Matter podcast about learning to live with no regrets, or how you live with no regrets, because that's something that you don't want to do to yourself, because you can never go back and change it. You can only use your past experiences as that experiences that'll help propel you towards a future where you're making more, better, and informed decisions. So if you'd like to reach out to me to learn more about how I can help you overcome your obstacles so that you can achieve your goals, or if you know someone that is on their family building journey, definitely reach out to me on the website, www.mcdbe.com. Again, I've been Marline Sapodi, Marline Duroseau. Sapodi is my middle name. I've been Marline Sapodi Duroseau, your host for the Women Matter podcast, and I will see you next time. Thank you.